Our country right now is in a bit of a mess. uh, we have, to be honest with you, always been in this mess. It's just like an infection that occasionally rises to the surface, and you get to see it more vividly across community fronts than you do at other times. But this has been several hundred years of a mess that we've started, that we have chosen to look away from rather than to stare right in the face. Uh, all of a sudden, you run into a situation with George Floyd where you can't use naivety to ignore it any longer. And I think that anger and pain has risen up to a level that is obvious and quite clear. I personally suspect, and the news is reporting, that some of the decadence and destruction that we see are coming from outside forces who want us to appear in a certain light, certain races who are using this as an opportunity to stereotypically categorize us and further distance us away from the issue itself. And then there's no doubt there are extremely angry Black people and angry white people. You can't just talk about this in terms of color, so the press often does. It's really ideals, because there are as many disturbed, rightfully so, and troubled white people at those images as there are Black people. And I purposely picked out a panel where I would be the only accent piece in the living room. And so I'm going to be the accent wall in this room today. Because I wanted to hear you talk, and I wanted the world to hear you talk. I'm going to let Christine go first. I'd love to hear ladies first. What are your thoughts when you looked at that image? What did you see?
Bishop Jakes, I'm going to try not to cry. I mean, just every image that I've seen this last week, for me personally, the penny dropped in a way it hadn't dropped. Here I am involved in rescuing the victims of human trafficking around the world for over a decade. I have Black friends. The Black church has shaped me. Black preaching has shaped me. You have shaped my whole experience. And when I saw, and really not just this one image, but these several images over the last few weeks, so many different ones, right. I realized that I don't get it, and I thought I had gotten it. I thought that I'm such an ally. I am so something distinctly changed for me, and that's when I contacted Dr. Anita. Sarah brought her into my life, and I said, "You need to talk to me about this in a way that a Greek Australian that hasn't grown up in the midst of this, but has traveled for the last 30 years, 30 countries a year, ministering in and out of so many different streams of the church, Black friends at my table, I mean, just part of my life." And yet I looked particularly this last week at those images and went, I don't get it. I don't get it like I should get it. And and we cannot, not only can we not be silent, anything I have, anything I am, I need to offer all of that and say, you tell me how I can best help with all of this, because even the advocacy I've done thus far hasn't been effective, and my silence in other places is certainly not being effective. And so I need guidance on how to do this, no matter how I look, no matter what I seem to, because it was this last week, this series of incidents the last week took every excuse off the table that there could have possibly have ever been. Be careful, wait, don't judge too soon. It's like, you're kidding me. I mean, this is just cold-blooded murder. Here it is, here it is, here it is. No police involved. Someone's sitting in their own house, and then this happens, and someone's just trying to, be in a park. And then you just go, okay, you cannot see these 4 incidents in 1 week, and then continue to be silent or and continue to remain ignorant. And I'm saying this as someone that has a huge worldview, that has been an activist, for nearly 15 years with A21, whose goal is to abolish slavery everywhere forever, and saying, I need help on how to do better.
I think it's funny, right at the end, you mentioned slavery. I don't think that you can understand America if you don't understand its ugly original sin, and the death and the depravity and how long it went on, and how it took a war to stop it from going on, and how it left a residue in the culture that shaped how we see each other, and yet nobody wants to talk about it. It reminds me of a bad marriage where the only thing that we have that keeps us together is silence, and so we don't fight, but we don't like each other, and that silence as a whole has kept the country from healing. But Carl, you broke your silence long time ago, and took the hits for breaking your silence. Continue to break the silence. This guy's so crazy, he's got me speaking for him this Sunday.
Tomorrow.
On race in America. What drove you off the edge? What makes you exist? Because a lot of people don't believe. A lot of Black people don't believe that there are any white people who care at all. So what happened to you? I mean, Christine came from another country, so we give her a pass. She just stepped into it. She just fell into it, so maybe she's naive to it. What happened to you?
I was blessed with Steve and Kathy Lentz. So I grew up in Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy, and I had these Jesus generation parents, and by that I mean they were like the Jesus people. When they said Jesus every other word. They would hustle people by having like barbecues just to pray for people. Like my parents were crazy, and I remember my mom when like one of my first memories. We saw a racist encounter go down, and my mom said, "Before I handle them, I want you to look at me. That is racism. That is evil. That is sinful, and it's the opposite of Jesus. You understand that, son?" Pointing at me like I did something wrong. And then she went up and handled this individual at a grocery store. So my legacy it includes parents that taught me right. And that's the only reason why I've gotten in trouble for stuff that I go, how could this be controversial? Like, how are we struggling with these concepts? Why do you not care? And so my whole life, we just kept stumbling into the right kind of trouble, because apparently people don't get the foundational racism of white people. George Floyd dying, I was already over the edge with Ahmaud Arbery. Right. I got violently, for a moment there, I got ill. I called a couple of my friends, and that to me, people don't realize that the man who killed Ahmaud Arbery was raised by parents who were still in the Jim Crow era. The man who killed Ahmaud, he didn't have a shot in hell of making this right, because he was raised by parents who were still looking at Black people as not human.
Right.
And we forget that this wasn't a long time ago. So when people are like, "Oh, that's a long time," it's not a long time ago. Like you said, to our church, you remember it. It's right there. Yeah. And I think what I take hope in, Bishop, honestly, is that I do believe that we have an opportunity to change the foundational culture right now. There's no excuse right now. Like we're dealing with the backlash of an older white generation that was taught evil things, demonic, evil, racial things. We don't have that excuse. I spent today 5 hours in Harlem with my 2 daughters marching in a rally so they would never forget. So they would.
Wow. Mm. I get it.
Yeah, I wanted them to see, why people are cursing at police officers.
Yeah.
And how maybe we've never known police to be anything other than helpful. But the reason why there's vitriol here, because they've never known police to be anything other than painful. And you can see their little brains changing, and you can see their hearts shifting. And for me, Bishop, I'm full of sorrow today, but hope because of what I saw. I know it's hard for people to hear, and for my Black brothers and sisters that say there are no good white people, I get that. I got some friends who have told me that this week. But I'm holding out hope that we're going to be able to change it. And I haven't given up hope on the old racist people in our country either, because Jesus can change your heart, and he can change your mind, and he can change your eyes. But I only feel like I feel about race because I was taught what Jesus said about people from the day I could walk.
Wow. I'm still stunned at you going out into the streets of Harlem and joining in with us. That's what made the civil rights movement have power. It wasn't just Black people, but it was Black people and white people and Jewish people, and God knows who all else walking hand in hand in my parents' generation. And I was a little boy during that time, but I remember it quite vividly. Judah, when you look at it, I knew your father. Carl brings up a strong point that a lot of our views are shaped by our parents. I knew your father. I preached for your father. I was a friend of your father's. Was a friend with you. Do your convictions come from your father and mother, or are they your own? How do you feel?
Thank you for asking that, Bishop. I'm like, my body's vibrating right now, and I've never experienced this last several days for me is a culmination of a lifetime of preparation. And what I mean by that is I am humiliated on this call, and I want to say that from the outset, sir. I have taken but a few chances over the course of preaching now for 20 years. I have taken my chances to speak to, in the words of Billy Graham, the worst sin of all. But I have done it so sparingly. Some think I've done it more, but I've done it sparingly in comparison. And that is humiliating. And Bishop, there's a few reasons I did that. There's a few reasons that I was too guarded, and because I feared that my dad's church would leave me. Mm-hmm. And I figured that if I said too much, like anybody, I'm exhausted with the emails that I am getting involved politically. I'm exhausted with the word broken. The system is not broken, my brothers and sisters. It was built this way.
Working.
It was built this way. What I saw with that officer's knee on the neck of George Floyd was a system that was built this way. And I'd like to quote a scripture: to whom much is given, much is required. I'd like to restate that for 2020 white Caucasian evangelicals living in this country. To whom much has been taken, much is required. And if we have done any research, brothers and sisters, it does not take much. We live in the entertainment technological age. We have resources at our fingertips to educate ourselves and inform ourselves. It's just not worth it to most of us who are Caucasian, and particularly pastors and preachers. The economics involved in this, the ego involved in this, the fear involved in this is what is making my body vibrate. Because I think that some of us preachers have been in spaces and places Jesus is not. And to me, I think we speak of equality, but what we don't speak of is the trajectory in which Jesus walked when he was here. And he didn't treat everyone the same. He did not. In fact, he treated the marginalized, the overlooked, the diseased, the broken. He treated them with more attention and more care.
Definitely.
And so I am undone, sir. I am 41, and I believe with all my heart that 20 years of preaching has led me to this day and to this point, and I will not give my sons and daughter the same America that exists today. And I don't know a lot, but my dad taught me that only Jesus can change the human soul and the human heart. And so I make it my commitment that we, as Caucasian pastors and preachers, I am pleading for your alliance and for a proper treatment of the Holy Scriptures, and that you would search your own heart as I am now. And may God have mercy.
Well, you know, I called you all together to talk to you on the phone because I love my people. I love all people, but I'm tired of talking to Black people about this. I want to talk to white people about this because there will never be anything changed until we join hands on this and we really make the kinds of difference that needs to be done. Until you're struck with the pain we feel, until you get it, until your heart breaks, until something happens inside of you and you say we have to have a better America for our children than what we are seeing right now play out again. I'm 62 years old, and this is like a bad movie that won't go away. This is not the first time I've seen this movie. I've seen this movie like over and over and over and over again. I'm tired of seeing reruns of this same horrific movie, the killing, the injustice, the frustration of people who can't be heard, the burning down of our cities, and then the calling in of the National Guard, and then back then it was the dogs and the hoses and the whole bit. And I've seen this movie. I know how the whole movie goes. I don't need to see this movie again. And white religion and Black religion and all religion plays a part in shaping how the world sees morality and integrity. And when Carl talks about fear of the backlash he got, and you talk about being afraid of losing your church, you would have to operate in both worlds to understand the level of vitriol that comes at you when you step outside of the box is staggering. It is staggering. The meanness that comes from church people who threaten you and castigate you and call you names because you cross the line. I know, because I get it. So I know you get it. I understand why you would feel this way. Ron, you're on that on this call because you're a little closer to my generation. When you look at this and you look back at what we saw as little boys and you watched our country catch a fire, and I don't know if you're quite old enough to remember when they shot Dr. King or when they drugged those dead, charred bodies of those young girls out of that church, and Emmett Till's bruised, beaten body on the cover of Ebony magazine. His mother would not allow them to make him up or close his casket. She wanted America to see what they had done to her son, because it is only when we stare ugly right in the face that we see it. How does this look to you?
Bishop, thank you for the invitation. I hold you and this panel in high regard. My number one, I'm in the middle, kind of. I would never bring to light or even guess or ask our two ladies' age. I know that's not kosher, but when it comes to me and you and Carl and Judah, I'm kind of in the middle. I know about their age. You're about 10 years ahead. They're about 10 years behind me. I'm kind of in the middle.
Okay.
And I come from a little bit, I came the other day, I don't know if you saw my video of exasperation. I have enveloped myself in this fight since the get-go. I left a denomination of white Southern evangelicals. I left it with a parsonage, a leased automobile, health insurance, retirement plan, and everything set for me. I went and got 40 rusty metal chairs and went in a warehouse with no heat, no carpet, no air to start a multicultural church in the Deep South and put it as a part of my core values in my inaugurational documents. And excuse my language because I'm frustrated too. I got the hell beat out of me. I was in the Deep South. South Carolina was the last state in the nation to adopt an MLK holiday. My county was the last county in the last state to adopt an MLK holiday. So, and I went there to start a multi-ethnic, multiracial church. So people did not stand on the sidewalk and clap when I entered the city and told everybody what I wanted to do. And the other day, mine was from exasperation of tiptoeing through this. I became a white pastor with about a 65% black church in the Deep South. It was unheard of. It drew a lot of attention. 48% of my paid full-time staff were all minorities. So I was doing things that hadn't been done before, but Pastor, that fear was real. I feared both sides because I tiptoed and I danced for 27 years trying to hold on to both sides and say, we can do this. And whenever something like this would come up, it would throw the ministry that I was doing in almost an impossibility. And you know, I've been in many, mostly African-American services, and you see one white head in there and it's mine. I'm sticking up, sitting in the room. I have inundated myself in it, tried to understand it. In 1992, 12 months after I started my church, I got 5 of my African-American brothers and I sat down at a table. I took them out to coffee because that's all I could afford. And I said, teach me racism. I said, I want to be quiet. And I said, I want everybody to tell me life through your lens. I said, tell me what I don't understand. Tell me what I don't know. I'm a student. Teach me, because I'm going to try to be a part of the solution in this thing. And that day was one of the greatest eye-opening days that I've ever had, because myself, who never saw myself with a racial cell in my body, I still learned a whole lot of things that I never knew that were built in my infrastructure. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
They were built in my infrastructure just by exposure, just by living in the house that I lived in and living in the communities that I lived in. And so when I started my ministry, I inundated myself in walking door to door in the most hurting communities, which were very disproportionately black. And I lived with them and I walked with them and I talked with them and I started preaching the message of the kingdom, which I thought was the ultimate bridge builder. And so when this happened the other day, yes, I was outraged. Yes, I cried. I felt what Judah felt. I felt what Carl felt. But I felt failure. I felt like a guy who has tried and tried and tried. And I'm like, are we still here? Are we really still here? And so I think I had to have one of them David experiences where I had to encourage myself and the Lord, not feeling sorry for myself, but has this message not gotten any more in our fabric than this? We're still here after hearing this message over and over. And so it was devastating for me to see that. It was devastating. But I don't know if you're going there. I was on an all black call-in show yesterday. I did not know it was a call-in show. I thought it was this. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was the only white guy on the panel. And it scared me. And the guy said, if you don't want to do this, we won't do it. But every single question came to me, and they were rough. They were rough questions that were very tough to sit there and answer. And I didn't want to become a spokesperson for white America because I don't know if I'm qualified to be that. But I don't know that you can separate this from politics. And I have some thoughts on that if you go there later. I would like to speak to that.